In today's experiment, we're going to look at the reaction between Alka-Seltzer tablets and water. With this reaction, we can figure out what the limiting reactant is and have a better understanding of what that means. We're going to be creating a lava lamp today, kind of a DIY lava. To start, we have a bottle filled about a quarter of the way with water. We're going to add some vegetable oil to this water, like so, until it's about 3/4 of the way full. Leaving some room at the top. Now, as you'll see, as things start to settle, vegetable oil is sitting on top of the water. It's not mixing. This is because while water is polar, vegetable oil is nonpolar, so they don't want to mix with one another. And the water is more dense than the oil, so it sits at the bottom. The more dense substance, the water, goes downward, while the less substance can sit right on top and doesn't mix with the water, as you can see here, the separation between the two. Now, we're going to add some food coloring to it. Just like water, food coloring is more dense than oil, so you'll notice as I start to put in drops, it'll sink towards the bottom. And it is also polar, just like water, so it won't mix with the oil, but it will mix with the water once it gets down there. So let's add some drops of food coloring. You can watch as they travel towards the bottom. Let them get through the oil. Into the water, and it'll get them to mix up. So now that I've let the food coloring really mix with the water, you can see the separation. You have the blue water from the food coloring mixed with it, and the vegetable oil sitting on top. Now we're going to take a look at this reaction. I have a few pieces of Alka-Seltzer tablet here, and we're going to drop it into the bottom and see what happens. They travel straight to the bottom, and then as you see, you start seeing bubbles kind of floating towards the top. Now those bubbles, some are clear, but a lot of them have some blue in them. And then you can see the blue start going back down towards the bottom again. This gives that kind of lava lamp feel to it. So what's happening? The Alka-Seltzer is reacting with the water in the bottom, and it's forming carbon dioxide gas. This gas travels in bubbles up towards the top because it is less dense than both the water and the oil, so it wants to float towards the top. Now some of the water sticks to the carbon dioxide gas. That's why you see the blue traveling up in those bubbles. Once the bubbles hit the top, however, they pop, meaning there's no more carbon dioxide gas, bringing the water up to the top, allowing it to float. So the water then again floats back down to the bottom because, just as before, it is more dense than the oil. And that's why you notice the blue going back down after they've reached the top. And you can kind of see the bubbles at the top of the bottle because that's where all the gas is being released. Now eventually, this reaction is going to slow down, as you can kind of see that happening now. The bubbles are going to stop traveling from the top. You'll still notice that a lot of that water is traveling back down towards the bottom, but there's really no more bubbles going up towards the top. That is because the Alka-Seltzer tablets have run out. Even though there's still water down at the bottom, there's nothing to react with it. That makes the Alka-Seltzer tablet the limiting reactant. Once it's all used up, the reaction can't continue. There can be tons of water left, but if there's no tablet to react with it, then it's not going to work. That's the definition of a limiting reactant. Now, if we were to add some more of those tablets into the bottle, you'll notice that the reaction starts up again. The bubbles are going to start traveling towards the top, and then start falling back down again. But just like before, once that Alka-Seltzer tablet runs out, the reaction will stop because there's no more to react with the water. While this doesn't look completely like a lava lamp, it could be due to many factors such as the type of vegetable oil I used, or the food coloring might be a little too dense. As you can see, it got pretty dark, so it's kind of hard to see the separation between the oil and the water kind of going up and down. But it's still having that same kind of reaction. There's some bubbles traveling towards the top. They pop, which is the fizzing and the bubbling at the top. And then the water falls back down because it is too dense to stay up in the oil. So it starts to fall back down. And eventually, all that fizzing and bubbling will stop, which is what we're truly looking at, is that once that stops, you know that one of the reactants has been completely used up, and that would be the limiting reactant, making that the Alka-Seltzer tablet. And eventually it'll kind of go back to normal. Even though there's still somewhat of a blue tint, you'll notice the separation between where the oil is on top and the water is on the bottom. And we can continue adding Alka-Seltzer tablets to allow the reaction to happen again, but every single time it'll eventually stop unless we keep adding more tablets to it.